What is the crisis point today?
It's a little like an undersea earthquake has happened offshore, and the earthquake is high on the Richter scale, and you don't see immediate results from the earthquake until sometime later when a tsunami wave washes onto shore with devastating effect. And I think that's an excellent way of picturing what's happened in the Anglican Communion. Decisions and actions have been taken by first the Diocese of New Westminster, then by the American Church, the Episcopal Church, and now nationally by the Canadian Church, which are like an undersea earthquake. And the tsunami wave is swept all around the world. And the global communion has reacted by saying that the decisions and actions are moving a completely different direction than the historic Christian faith would move. Mm-hmm. And therefore they're calling upon faithful believers in North America, Canada and the United States to seek higher ground.
So what's the genesis of the earthquake, or what exactly is the earthquake?
Well, in 2002, the Diocese of New Westminster voted to bless same-sex unions, and over the last 5 years, as the global church has met to consider this crisis in the communion, there have been repeated statements calling for the diocese and for the Canadian church and for the American church to turn back from its direction. It might be helpful for me to give some background to try and give a picture of what this looks like in the global communion. Can I do that?
Sure, go ahead.
The Anglican Communion is a global body made up of 38 interdependent provinces, national churches. And
so a province is a national church. Canada then would be one province?
Right, the United States is a province.
Okay.
Kenya is a province. England is a province. New Zealand is a province. And the global communion is, as it were, 38 ships that are all chained together in the historic faith that we have received in the Scriptures, that's expressed in the creeds and in the formularies of the Anglican Church. And we are a flotilla of 38 ships sailing towards, let's say, England. And what has happened is that since 2002, two of the independent provinces have decided that we are going to sail in a different direction. We're going to sail, let's say, Australia. And so the chain that binds all these provinces together is being stretched and stretched and stretched. And these ships are saying, we're calling for these two provinces, one of which is Canada and one of which is the USA. They're calling on them to turn back and to come with them in the same direction that historically the Church has been heading in. In 2003, the primates, and I'll explain what a primate is in just a minute, the primates said that if Canada and the United States continue, that they will have torn the fabric, they will have broken these chains. And the chains are stretching so much now that many of these provinces have said, we're going to have to cut the chains and allow those two provinces to go their own way. The polite Anglican language to speak about that is to walk apart.
If I may just ask a question, what is it exactly that is taking Canada and the United States outside of the global communion?
Right. It's the decisions and actions of the different synods, not just to bless same-sex unions, but that issue, which is the tip of the iceberg, which perhaps I can come to in a minute. Those decisions have, the rest of the Church has said, we want you to come back, we want you to turn away from that direction, which is the opposite of the direction that the rest of us are heading. The difficulty for us, you see, is that there are many of us in Canada and in the United States that don't want to go to Australia, even though Australia...
It's a great place to be.
It's a great place to go.
A great place to be from.
We believe that the direction set for us in the Scriptures and in the historic church is the right direction, and that God has not changed his mind on this or on any other issue. And we want to be part of this global communion. We want to continue sailing in this direction. Now, what's happening now is that there are a number of groups of Orthodox believers in Canada and in the United States that are being forced out of their provinces, out of Canada and of the United States. And the other provinces are coming along and saying, you belong to us. And they are building links and building chains with them and saying, we will take you with us. It's a little bit like a rescue operation, if you will. And it's unprecedented. And never before in the history of the Anglican Church have two provinces sought to move away from theologically and in terms of their understanding of the gospel, have sought to move away from the rest of the communion, and never before has there been a rescue operation mounted for those who want to continue in the same direction with the rest of the church.
If I can just clarify, if people pay attention to the media and what's going on in Canada, everything seems to indicate that these churches are leaving the Anglican Church and creating something different. In fact, if you look at this diagram, it seems more clear that it is the national church of Canada and of the United States that has in fact left.
This has been our point of view from the very start. In 2002, when the Diocese of New Westminster voted to bless same-sex unions, the Archbishop of Canterbury said, this decision is schismatic, an ecumenical embarrassment, and the new Archbishop of Canterbury coming in said, this poses a significant problem for our sacramental unity. Since then, the primates have made statements. In 2003, the combined primates signed a statement saying, the fabric of the communion is torn. They recognise that they stand in fellowship with us, with the believers who remain faithful in these places, and they call upon these churches, these provinces, to turn back. And each one of the primates' meetings since then has done the same thing. There have been international reports, there have been international task forces on this, and all of them have come to the same conclusion, that the direction these churches are heading is walking apart. And if they continue to do this, they will walk apart from the global communion. But that they recognise that within these churches there are faithful people, and they have called for what they describe as adequate episcopal oversight, protection for congregations like the Congregation of St. John's, which is in serious theological disagreement, really heading a different direction than the diocese. And that's what this is about.
So in talking about a schism, and in fact that word has come up on many occasions, is there one occurring in the church right now, or has it already occurred?
Let me answer it by saying this. I think in the view of the majority of the communion, schism has taken place. 22 of these other provinces out of 38 have indicated either completely broken or impaired communion with Canada and the United States. Now, the reason it's taken 5 years for this to fall out, if you will, is because the global communion has wanted to be as patient and as gracious as possible. There have been repeated calls for a moratorium on the blessing of same-sex unions, a turning back to the traditional teaching of the Church. And I think it's right that it has been so slow. It's right for there to have been careful, considered and gracious calls in this area. And I think there is still the possibility that the Canadian and Episcopal Church in the United States would turn back.